Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to our call. This is a recreation call of call number 1. So you won't hear any sharing and there won't be any interactions from a group of people like the other calls. The 7 stages of breathtaking relationships. This is Thomas Kuster. I'm the author and creator of the 7 stages of love and the cyclical stages of love. There's one thing that we all have in common in this relationship road of life, and that is all of us, without exception, have a past. This includes, for most of us, a past of relationships, intimate relationships. In our culture, no matter the circumstances of past relationships, if they are broken, completed, finished, in our culture, it's regarded as and related to as a failure. The intention here in the stages of love is to alter the relationship you have to your past. Specifically, the relationship you have to your past about past relationships. Those that for one reason or another are not the relationships that you're in now. Consider for a moment that no relationship you've ever had is a failure. Now, for some, this isn't easy to try on. It isn't easy to relate to it this way. You might see one of the relationship breakups not a failure, while others you will see only as failures. Consider this. There is a failure. The failure, however, is not the relationship. And if it's not the relationship, what might I be pointing to as the failure? Every relationship, especially the intimate ones, the ones where you fall in love, creates an opportunity, a possibility to shift, to transform, and to expand who you really are, the true self. They each had something that served you, the right thing at the right time. It isn't ours to understand or even know at the time, but simply to be and to get that is so. The failure then was the lack of awareness or the wherewithal, the distinction to use it, that is the opportunity, to its fullest capacity. To be a bigger, brighter, more extraordinary you, better simply because you walked down that path with another human being. Think back to past relationships you've been in and look in your mind's eye to see, what did you take away or what did you miss? What did you miss that would have served you or given you more of yourself had you just had the wherewithal to be present? When we leave a breakup of some sort, if we're upset and we leave mad, we hang on to that tightly. And then we start to build strategies so as to never have to experience that again. If we look at the past without pretense, we'll see we missed an opportunity to be who we really could be. Authentic and straight communication in most relationships is displaced by distancing, withholding communication, and pretending that everything is okay. While it may very well be okay, not practicing communication is a huge loss and has a huge impact on everyone involved. And in our culture, that's how we play relationships. It's a defensive game, a competition. To be authentic, to be real inside a relationship could look like, where can I not blame you for me being the child over here, upset like I might have been when I was 5 or 6 years old? There are more single people right now than ever in history. It's simply the culture. More couples live together longer and never marry. They aren't accounted for in our statistics. The statistics read as though relationships are less important than they once were, while in fact, this couldn't be further from the truth. It's so important that we no longer want to risk the failure divorce can bring. Splitting up as a couple, unmarried, is failure enough. So why then? Why relationships? There's the obvious response: companionship, intimacy, raising a family. But then consider the not-so-obvious response, the not-so-obvious answer, most probably overlooked by most, hidden in the background. It's a setup by nature. And the setup is a provision for the opportunity, the possibility of altering oneself in relationship to his or her childhood. It's not that the childhood was good or bad. We all had a childhood, right? And there are aspects and characteristics of our personality that got developed as that child in that childhood. Some of those aspects you probably would hope is either gone or at least way behind you. These are aspects of our personality that clearly don't serve us. They may have served us then. They may have served us as the child, but they don't serve us now. So naturally, as we move through a relationship, those old aspects of ourself start to show up. And now they show up a little brighter and louder and bigger than we remember them ever being. We're not going to be very happy with the other person who seems to be the reason all this stuff is showing up now. Adaptation and growth is the plan of nature. And for adaptation and growth, the relationship becomes the necessary friction to drive up all aspects of our personality. Our childhood, that should we heal, the true us, the true you, the biggest, brightest, most powerful you, the who you really are, the one suppressed over time through life gets to show up. Who wouldn't want that? We all want that. But as well, we all resist and we avoid the necessary friction. So nature took care of that dichotomy. Consider that you and I are attracted to, we desire, and we want the most incompatible person on the planet for us. And once the attraction happens, we don't realize that he or she is the most incompatible person. Because by that time, the time we're attracted, the time we're infatuated, maybe we've fallen in love, it's not so obvious to us in that moment that our brains have drugged us. It drugged us to get us through the process. Get us through the process and get us to stage 1. Stage 1 out of the 7 stages I refer to as high. It's an acronym, H-I-G-H, high. It stands for highly intoxicated, giddy, and happy. This is a very important stage, not only because it starts a romantic surge, but it's also the stage where love seems to be the most potent. It seems the most real. There is a bonding taking place. You see, the brain releases in large doses oxytocin and dopamine. Stage 1 is pretty much all biology, all hormones. It's a euphoric period filled with romance and intimacy. Some of the characteristics of stage 1 is you play up the similarities in the relationship with each other. while you play down any of the differences. 80% of your thoughts in this stage is on the other person, missing them and desiring them. Your inhibitions are lowered. And later on, you may even be embarrassed about the things you said or did as a result of those lowered inhibitions. You have more energy and you need less sleep. This is a beautiful period, and it's a period where making big decisions for the relationship makes no sense. Like moving in together or getting married or making a baby, burning bridges with other people in your life. During this stage, it's not uncommon to cut other people out of your life for a while. It's a very hormone-driven stage, and as long as it's distinguished, you will have power. People in this stage tend to think it's the real deal, and in our culture, we call it falling in love. We don't relate to it as driven by biology, and the euphoric experiences feel like it's never going to end. It will last forever. It's a beautiful experience and one you should enjoy as long as you remember you are high. This stage is a kind of regression, meaning when we were babies bonding with our mothers, oxytocin was released by our brains. Oxytocin is a bonding hormone, the cuddling hormone. When we were babies, the experience is that I am all there is. In fact, there is no I am. There is no experience of me versus mother, me versus world, me versus others. There's just me. And not even me. And everything that's happening. Everything's connected. Then baby develops. He or she starts to experience itself as separate. There is mother, and there is me. There are now other things impacting me. I am separate. There becomes this identity that has got boundaries and separateness. We continue growing up, the baby that is, and there's this sense of loneliness, and we want to feel that loneliness. We are anxious to experience the oneness again. And that leads us to some falling in love experience. The oxytocin gets released in our systems as it did when we were infants, and we begin to bond. We regress to the experience of being united and one with everything. It's extraordinary. We're excited. Everything is good in life. It's a beautiful experience, and we crave it. The regression as an adult, falling in love, is comforting. But you can't stay there for very long. Not if a nurturing and loving, lasting relationship is developed, and not if you're going to deal with real life. It must be moved through, and it must be distinguished from. And during this stage, while there's all the closeness, I always recommend develop and create truthfulness together and create a kind of togetherness so that when you get to stage 2, you have more power. See, by the time you get to stage 2, also I refer to this as the coming down stage, the dopamine and the oxytocin are subsiding in our bodies, and reality is starting to show up. In this stage, you start to ask some serious questions. Who are you? Really? Who am I? Really? And then who are we? You see, you're bonded, and now you're beginning to see glimpses of the self-image of that human being shadowed against a projected image that got developed and designed as the child grew up. You experience oneness, but just as the baby had to distinguish itself from mother, it comes time to distinguish yourself from the other. In order to distinguish the we in this equation, a new image begins to develop. This image we will call we. And for that to get done fully, there has to be a healing of me. In childhood, we deal with stuff. and we create personalities and characteristics that protect us. This creation doesn't always work in human interactions and mostly backfires in love relationships. This especially shows up when you connect intimately with another person, one that you're choosing to love. In this new realm that starts to arise in stage 2, we start to deal with that personality of ours, those characteristics we developed that are now in the way. We all understand what I'm pointing to here. There seems to be the stumbling blocks in a lot of relationships. In stage 1, we think things are going to be great forever. We forget that who we think we're in love with is an image we created in our own mind, a fantasy dance, if you will, supported by our brain. Perhaps forgetting is inaccurate. It's more closely that we simply just don't know that. When reality sets in and we have to reconcile what we thought versus what is so, it can be challenging. Who we're in relationship with is not me. They don't see things our way. Perhaps they don't agree with our perceptions. It brings up being right and defending ourselves. A relationship is the friction that gives one the opportunity to heal the bruises of the emotional body. Undistinguished, this can come as a surprise and get the couple stuck in a positional stance, dug into their view, unable and unwilling to budge. Welcome to the 7 stages of breathtaking relationships. I hope you enjoy the journey.